Hey everyone, it's Ethan here with another episode of Brickhouse Vintage, and today we're going to show you how to make a farmhouse style sign. So let me just start off by saying there are literally dozens of ways to make these types of signs, different construction methods, different materials. There's no real right or wrong way to do it. This is just the way we do it. It's the way we've kind of refined over the years, and it's what works for us. So everybody kind of has a different take on it, but this is the way we do it, and that's what we're going to be showing you today. So the first thing we do is we start off with our plywood. This is a 23/32 radiata pine plywood. We get this at Home Depot in a 4 foot by 8 foot sheet, and we usually cut them down into our sign sizes. Now there's a few reasons why I like this plywood. The first one being it kind of comes in a sanded finish already, so it's a nice smooth finish. It has this, grade A side. It's already smooth. It gives you a nice base to start with when you're going to paint over it and things like that. Second is it has a nice thickness to it. So when we go to nail our trim on the sides, it gives you a nice nailing edge to nail into, and it limits, if you're going to miss or not with the nail. Third being the economy of it. A sheet of this is under $40, or at least it was last time we got it. I'm sure things have changed a little bit. But for almost a 3/4 inch sheet of plywood, 3/4 inch thick, that's a pretty good price. Typically you see a lot of the other 3/4 inch plywood at $45, $50 a sheet. So it's relatively cheap for what it is, which is really good. So the first thing we do is we take our plywood and we kind of sketch out on a piece of paper all of the cuts we're going to make, because for us, we use the entire 4x8 sheet of plywood. So we'll draw out all of our cuts, what we need to cut, all of our measurements, and make all those cuts on the table saw. So we cut them down into the small sign pieces like this, and after that I kind of look at it, and since I'm a perfectionist, I'll fill in any little divots or spots or dents with wood filler, and then after that we're going to take a sander to it and just get a nice smooth finish on the top. And I'm also going to sand the sides here, just because I only have a contractor grade table saw, so you get a little bit of wobble when you're feeding the board through, but it's what I have, it's what works. You can also use a circular saw with a guide if that's all you have, but this is what we have to use, and I usually like to take the sander there just to take some of that kind of roughness out. So we're going to sand it down now. Okay, now that we have our board all sanded, we're going to go ahead and paint this with our background color. Today we're using Fusion Mineral Paints Ash. It's a real nice dark gray color. Usually like using this quite a bit. We're going to go ahead and we're going to paint the background. And this may take, depending on the color, 2-3 coats. All right, now that the paint has dried on the board, we went ahead and cut our stencil on our Cricut. We use the cheapest shelf paper that you can buy at Walmart. This is the Duck brand. It's literally the cheapest per roll that you can get for the vinyl. We just throw it away anyway after we're done, so it's the perfect value for it. I think it's about $2 a roll. So we use that for our stencil, cut it out on the Cricut, and then we put transfer tape over the top. so we can get our stencil onto our board. So we're going to go ahead and stick that now. And we will link these products below. We're just going to go ahead and use some of our scrap pieces to fill in the rest of this area so we don't have any overspray from the letters that we're spraying. It's just a good use of your scraps too. Okay, and now we're ready to paint. So on this one, since it's a nice dark gray, we're going to be using Krylon Satin Bright White. The satin gives it a nice finish. It's not too flat, it's not too shiny. It tends to not bleed as much as some of the glossier colors. So the satin finish is nice, and then the bright white will really pop on this ash color. So we're going to go ahead and spray those. And you want to make sure that you're using multiple light coats when you're spraying over this, and you'll see me doing that. If you spray too heavy in one shot, you're gonna have more bleed through underneath your stencil, and you don't want that. All right, now that our paint is pretty much dry, we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove our vinyl stencil. And there you have it. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start our trim. This is the type of trim that I use. This is a 1 inch by 2 inch radiata pine. I believe it's a select pine. I also get these at Home Depot. It's a little bit more expensive for these than your regular furring strips or anything else that's kind of rougher. But again, to me, this is probably the best value because it's a lot nicer board. You don't have to do any cutting out and throwing away. No splinters or knots. It's just a nicer, cleaner piece of wood to use. So this is what I like to use. But whatever works for you, whatever you have available, you can use. So we're going to start off by measuring each side. And I always measure each side individually just in case, because there could have been a little bit of wiggle when you were originally sending it through the table saw or something like that, that it might be off by something as small as a 32nd or a 16th of an inch, that it's not, you're not going to notice it once the whole thing's together. But if you're cutting it individually and you're off by a little bit, you might have a little bit of a gap there. And I like it fitting, as tight as possible. So I measure each side individually and cut them so it's a perfect fit together. All right, now that we got our top and bottom pieces cut, we're going to go ahead and we're going to measure for the overall sides. Now we want to make sure we're bringing it a little bit longer to line up the top and bottom. All right, and there we go. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to just give these a light sanding, get some of the splinters off, some of the sharp corners here, and probably do that with a 220 grit sandpaper. You don't want to scar the wood, you just want to take off some of this excess sharp edges. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to sand those down, and then we're going to go and stain them. All right, and now we're just going to give them a quick staining. We're using Minwax Special Walnut stain today. We use a little bit of everything depending on what looks right with the color of the sign. This is one of our favorites though. It kind of gives it a lighter brown finish on it, not too dark, but it gives it a nice kind of country look. All right, and we're going to go ahead and let those dry, and then we're going to come back and we're going to tack those onto our sign. So we're going to start by tacking on our pieces of trim. I'm using 2-inch nails in my 18 gauge nailer. We're going to use 2-inch nails to nail these in, and then we're going to use some 1-inch nails to nail the corners in a little bit. Okay, I'm going to swap to 1-inch nails. And we're just going to tack these corners just to give it a little bit of extra strength. And there we go. It's our sign. I'm going to go and I'm going to put some D-rings on the back of this, and then we'll be done. All right, so these are the D-ring hangers that we usually use. I'm going to put a couple of these on here, and then we're going to put a piece of wire to hang it on. Some picture hanging wire. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to measure these out. And that's it. That's how we make these farmhouse style signs. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And with that, we'll see you next time.